Welcome to the 2016 Storm Football Preview. I'm Sports Information Director Jem Smith. I'm joined by Head Coach Mark McNally and Assistant Coach Jerry Hazard. Coach, it's nice to have you here today.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Camp starting up pretty soon next week, so how are you feeling right now heading into camp?
Well, we're putting together the final preparations. Obviously the schedule is relatively set as far as how you can practice and when you practice, but we're, putting on the final touches and making sure we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, but we're excited about the date coming down the road, that's for sure.
All right, so let's just head into it. Let's start with the quarterback. John Banyas had a pretty good year last year, started a lot of the games. So is he going to be back this year? And if not, who are some other people that might step up?
Well, I think we have a really good group of quarterbacks on the roster, and we have a nice mix of veteran guys and some young guys that we're bringing in. We have John Banyas, who played the most last year. Great leader for us, has had a great summer, had a great spring, really looking forward to what he's going to do this year. We also have Tyler Eden, who's a fourth-year guy for us. Very talented player. He's going to compete to play. Would feel very comfortable if he was the guy that's in there, so we think from that position with the leaders that we have is very solidified. We also have a young guy, Javarian Smith, who's a redshirt freshman we brought in. He's going to play a lot of spots for us, but he also has the ability to play QB. And we brought in a local guy, Mario Montecero, who I think can be very good for us. He's going to have a lot to learn as a freshman coming in, but we think he can be a very good player.
One of the big things last year was how young the offensive line was. There's a lot of true freshmen playing, and then your big veteran last year, Jeremy Durbin, graduated. So now that they have some of the experience, how does the offensive line look?
It's funny how that flips. That last year we were really worried about the age of the group and the inexperience, and we ended up starting 4 true freshmen. But now the positives going forward is we have 7 guys on the roster that have started football games for us on the O-line. So that provides us with some really good depth. We think there's a recruiting class coming in that is very good as well. So that might turn into something, last year they were a little bit concerned with it. This year might be a good strength for us.
On the opposite side of the line, defensive line last year, you're losing Aaron Rojas, who was a good player 2 years. Ugliak honorable mention. You had Alec Heldreth, who was a redshirt freshman last year, kind of came out of nowhere, defensive end, had a pretty big season. So what are you expecting from the defensive line this year?
Well, we think the defensive line will be better across the board. Again, because of youth last year and injury, we're forced to play a lot of guys. You mentioned Alec Heldreth, he does come back. Has the ability to play both inside and outside for us. We're a guy that, he might be a guy that we move around a little bit in some matchup situations. Has gotten incredibly strong in the weight room. Has really worked hard at his craft. Another guy that played a lot of football for us last year is Shane Maxey. Another guy that is a 270-pounder now that can play inside but has the agility to play outside. Just gives us a little bit of strength, size in the middle, but also allows us to move some guys around. At the defensive end position, we played it last year by committee. We got a lot of guys that are working hard for those 2 spots. So we're hoping that the competition continues to breed success, and that we ideally would love to have 2 groups of linemen that we can run out there. We think for the first time ever we have some depth at that spot, so we're really excited about the defensive line coming back.
And behind the defensive line, linebacking troop, you have 3 pretty good returners. Zebedos, Christian Cole, and Isaiah Wheeler are all towards the top of the leaderboard on tackles last year. So what are you expecting out of linebackers?
Well, I've told the linebackers this: it's a coach's dream and a player's nightmare. I think we have probably somewhere between 6, 7, 8 guys that either believe or I think have the ability to be a starter for us. Donnie Eatman comes over from running back to linebacker to enhance the group of Cole, Zebedos, and Wheeler that you mentioned. Nick Kirshner, I believe, was an all-conference player that's been hurt the last 2 years with injuries, comes back. Zach Jude had an absolutely great spring, so all of a sudden there's a big group of guys there that all have the ability to play. And again, I'm going to throw them into a hat and let them compete, and hopefully that competition drives the best meat to the top. And I think it got a chance to be very, very solid at the linebacking spot.
All right, let's go back to the offense. We talked about quarterback, talked about the line, so let's talk about some of the skill players. One of the big losses is Anthony Bilal graduated, one of the best players in the country past couple of years. So from the running back spot, who do you expect to step up and take his place?
It's really going to be a competition throughout camp. Jordan Morgan and Antoine Harris are the 2 older guys on the roster. They were taking most of the reps in the spring, but they don't have a lot of game experience. So we think we brought in at least two very, very good freshmen Chris Collins, a local kid from Euclid, and Desmond Turner, a running back from Alabama, who I think have the ability to compete, are kind of different backs, where Desmond's a little more of a breakaway guy. Chris is more of a pound you type of guy, so they bring a lot of things to the table. And I think it's going to be a great competition. And we had Anthony started for 4 years, started a lot of football games. It's not every day that you graduate 6,000 rushing yards and 100 touchdowns and everything he was able to do. But it's going to be a big time competition in camp, and I'm really looking forward to see how that plays itself out. On the outside, it's also kind of the same thing. DeMarco Rojas is really the only receiver coming back with experience. He's going to be a senior. He has made some plays throughout his career, but now we're really looking forward to him making a step up and taking over that competition and really being a consistent playmaker for us on the outside. Tay Johnson and Ty Hampton are two guys that have played a little bit, but now they have to step up and play a lot. We think the receiving class of freshmen is outstanding. There's some great local guys that we're able to get that are big bodies that I think are going to push right off the bat. So that'll be a great competition. At the slot position, we graduated both Lindgrens, who have been playing for us forever, and it felt like. So that's going to be interesting. Mitch Tilley, who made some plays for us in a backup role last year, is going to step up and be a starter there. And then on the other side, it's really going to be a good competition. John Bell will be a guy that will compete. Javarian Smith, who we talked about at the quarterback spot, is going to be a guy that competes. And then we've got two local guys, Nick Fitzgerald from over at Riverside and Jason Blizzard from Mentor, that I think both possess the ability to come in and help us and are going to compete. And then, the big piece that we have coming back is going to be Anthony Kukwa at the tight end spot. He's going to play tight end, he'll play H, and we'll figure out a way to move him around and disguise where he's going to be and get the ball to him. And we think he has a great chance to have a huge year for us.
Let's talk about defensive backs. Past couple years, Maurice Hale from the safety spot has had some pretty big seasons. So what are you expecting from your defensive backs this year?
Well, Mo comes back, and Mo's former high school quarterback. He's definitely the quarterback of the defense. Unless something happens shocking, he will be the starter at the free safety spot. Next to him, on paper right now, would be Dylan Starks, who saw a lot of action last year. Having two older, more mature safeties back that know our system, know the checks, is a comforting thought process. With Tony Andrews coming back at one corner, should be in pretty good shape there. And there's a number of guys in the defensive backfield that have stayed this summer and really worked hard. So again, I think that competition aspect is really, really huge. So we're again hoping that the competition pushes the top guys out there. But for us on defense, we got to stay healthy. The last 2 years, unfortunately, health has been a big issue. We got to stay healthy and keep that competition going so we can get better and better.
All right. Tough schedule this year. No real easy games. They're all conference games this year. So what are your overall expectations?
Well, the conference schedule is the conference schedule. We know who's out there, and it's going to be tough, and we know that. That's what we signed up for. We're going to play the conference schedule one game at a time. The first one is the only one right now that we're talking about, and that's Northern Michigan. Once we get them, get that game done, then we'll move on to the next one and the next one. But for right now, we're approaching it one game at a time. I think the first one's the most important one and the one that we're putting all of our emphasis on. We know that it's a tough schedule. We're prepared for that. But we're going to go out and play them one at a time and enjoy the process and hopefully make some major improvements within the program.
All right, you mentioned first game is September 3rd. It's Northern Michigan down at Jack Bird Memorial Stadium. Coaches, thank you for being here today. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Go Storm!
Look forward to seeing you come out to some games.
All right, take care, everyone, and as always, rage on.